Hey friends, my name is Melanie and I am super jazzed to be here as always. Welcome back to our full moon series where we cover the energy of the zodiac sign the full moon falls in. Today we're going to be doing Virgo. I start these videos off by just covering the archetype of the zodiac sign. I have 5 key areas I like to discuss so that we can get a good kind of blueprint of the energy that we're working with, and then I'll move on to the correspondences and associations for that zodiac sign. At the end of the video, I will talk a little bit about some ritual suggestions or ways I could see these correspondences and this energy being used in a beneficial way for you. I just want to remind you that these videos are not based off of the transiting planets, so this content is applicable for any full moon that falls in the zodiac sign of Virgo, even if it's 2 or 3 years from now. I wanted to provide some reference videos so that you guys have a one-stop shop for all kind of inspiration, correspondences, and suggestions for working with the Virgo full moon energy. The 5 areas that I like to cover for every zodiac sign that I feel kind of provides a well-rounded blueprint of the zodiac's energy would be its planetary ruler, the house that it's at home in, its astrological glyph that the zodiac sign is represented by, its modality, as well as its element. So first up, the planetary ruler of Virgo is Mercury. Mercury is known to be in charge of communication, technology now, because technology often is relaying a lot of communication and like the back and forth of information. Also rules over the mind, and I like to point out that Mercury itself, the planet, is extremely fast moving. It's why you hear about it so often going into retrograde. It's because it moves very quickly and will go into retrograde often, especially if you're comparing it to some of the outer lying planets like Saturn. For me, this represents the speed of the tongue and the mind, a quick wit, a very engaged, interactive, bam kind of energy, a lot of back and forth, a lot of communication, and a lot of relation between a lot of things, right? The transferring of information. I think this really shows up in the Virgo archetype with Virgo's attention to detail. It can be very analytical, very nitty-gritty, and get right in there, and is quite sharp, quite intelligent, quite quick. So Virgo is at home in the 6th house. The 6th house, oh my God, I can't. Virgo is at home in the 6th. Virgo is at home in the house that comes after 5 and before 7. Rules over things like organization, our work ethic, and our commitment to work, health and fitness, and our body's functionality, habits, systems, analytics. All of those things are in our 6th house. I feel like this is often what kind of gets emphasized about Virgo is their attention to detail, their perfectionism, their analytical approach to a lot of things in life. And I think a lot of the time it's discussed in a negative sense, but obviously without these 6th house areas of our life being kept in check, we would be all over the place and would not really accomplish a lot of things. So I would encourage you to keep a positive outlook on the 6th house, because I feel like it's very often painted in a boring, dull, more negative light than it deserves. Organization skills, analytics, all of those things are very important, usable tools. Virgo's element is earth, making it extremely tangible, a little bit slower moving in comparison to some of the other elements. Obviously it takes a mountain a while to move, for example, but it is very grounded in reality, grounded in the 3D, and often has great associations with manifesting and bringing things into the reality and into this kind of 3D construct world we live in. Earth is very literally earth. Tangible, grounded, slow moving, level-headed. Virgo is also a mutable sign, so the modality is mutable. What that means is it's often very flexible, it's adaptable, and a lot of people would say cooperative, because as opposed to the cardinal signs, for example, like Aries and Capricorn, they can be pretty hard in the way they communicate and the way they cause motion and instigate change. Mutable signs like Virgo are a lot more adaptable and can keep the peace a lot easier. They can hear everything that the cardinal signs want. They listen to the fixed signs as well, and they often find a mediated response and can come at it from a very balanced, level kind of approach. They aren't the ones who are out there pushing or pulling, and they're not stuck in their ways. Diplomatic and helpful is often the words I associate with mutable signs, especially with Virgo, because their astrological glyph is the maiden or the virgin, and it is heavily associated with the acts of service that Virgo provides. The virgin or the maiden, like I mentioned, has a lot more to do with its acts of service and its refinement process than it does the archetype's sexual history. I love talking about Virgo's ability to refine things. Often Virgo gets a hard judgment passed on it for being critical or judgmental or too perfectionist, and that's definitely a shadow that can show up with the Virgo archetype. But on the flip side of that is this beautiful refinement process that takes place when Virgo really puts their mind to it. They can comb through any kind of system or organization, project, person sometimes, and really refine what's there. They have a great ability with this earth element mutable energy to take stock of the situation at hand or the dynamics that are going on, the pros and the cons. They see it all with that sharp Mercury mind of theirs. They are very perceptive, and then they have the ability to really just more often than not, they can do this diplomatically, but to start slowly refining the system or the process or the person or the organization, they can really start chipping away at the things that are not productive, that don't add value in this 3D world, that isn't moving the group or the organization forward, and they can really start to cut that stuff away. I say that they can mostly do this diplomatically because obviously Virgos and other chart placements can be aspected with blah blah blah, and I think often Virgos get so dug into a rut and people stop listening or don't recognize all of the work that they've done that they can get quite bitter because they've been carrying the weight of a whole team for a long time without any recognition of their contributions. So sometimes there's a little bit of an edge to Virgo's criticism, and depending on where you have this Virgo energy in your birth chart, for example, that could come out more in your personal relationships. So Virgos often are told to criticize their partners less, or that they will never be satisfied. And of course, those are shadows to this archetype as well that need to be considered. But when we're looking at working with the Virgo archetype with the full moon, I think it's a great aspect to focus on is this refinement process, especially because the full moon energy involves retrospection, looking back and doing some kinds of release work more often than not. You don't have to by any means do release work on the full moon, but a lot of the time it's the culminating energy, the illuminated in the night sky energy. You can see very clearly what was hidden before. Now, it's important to decide what part of the full moon energy you're choosing to work with when you are designing a ritual or doing any kind of practice on the full moon. There are many different ways to use lunar energy. Oftentimes people will just do simple things like charging up waters, crystals, objects, tools with the lunar energy, as well as the zodiac energy that the full moon falls in. Always an option, but a lot of the time full moons are associated with things like banishing work. You can do release rituals, and it is, of course, in the lunar phase, the culmination flowering stage of the flower. So if you were to be planting seeds and planting flowers on the new moon, come the full moon is when you would start to see the fruits of your labor that you planted in the new moon. So at this phase, you start to see what you start to reap what you have sowed. And it's a great time for people to do release work if they don't like it, or to do a refinement process and a rededication of their goals or intentions that they set on the new moon. So the full moon energy is great for evaluating. It is great to kind of tune in with your subconscious and to see what was hidden prior. Of course, you can take it the very literal route, which is often what the founders of paganisms and back in the day people did, was the fact that the new moon was completely dark in the sky. You couldn't see anything. So on the night of the full moon, your evening, your nighttime, the darkness, the scary dark world is now fully illuminated, and you have this bright luminary in the sky. So it is a good time to do banishing work, a good time to do protection magic, because you can clearly see your enemies at night. There's a lot of different aspects of the full moon energy you can work with. One day I'll do a video unto itself of just the full moon energy, but for now I hope that gives you a few ideas and you guys can better narrow down how you're wanting to use the full moon. I think it's really important to get specific in the attributes that you're choosing to use and pull from when you're working with different energies and archetypes for a ritual, a spell, or a ceremony, or even things like aligning meditations or whatever you choose to do. So we discussed the Virgo archetype and the 5 main areas that I like to focus on when I'm trying to understand a archetype. We discussed a little bit about the full moon energies that you could choose to work with, but before I get into the correspondences, take a couple of minutes here to write down your own associations and your own kind of ideas and correspondences that might have come up for you while you were listening to me talk about the Virgo archetype. The reason I think it's important to include this bit because in magic, in rituals, in spell casting, and in your life in general, the things that you apply meaning to are sacred for you because they mean something to you. So if you have correspondences and associations and feelings and ideas and memories and, you know, life things that come up when you're thinking about these archetypes, it's important for you to note those and to work with those. Those are very valid and important tools, and if there is a specific calculator out there that screams Virgo energy for you, incorporating that type of calculator into your ritual or your spell or your practice or whatever you're doing can and often is way more powerful than choosing and using someone else's correspondence for that. So I'm going to provide you with several. I cover a many different wide variety of correspondences, but I think it's important to take a couple minutes and do some like introspection about what Virgo means to you, even if it's writing down a few keywords, I don't know, whatever comes up for you. Now that you guys took a couple seconds to figure out what you think and feel about the astrological zodiac sign Virgo and this full moon ritual you're planning for, I'm gonna give you some correspondences, color correspondences. So colors that are associated with Virgo are pale blue, yellow, black, and gold. I like to include green in there because often I'll use the zodiac signs as representation of the element that they are. As Virgo is a earth element, I like to associate green with it in certain rituals or whatever I'm doing. Stones associated with Virgo would be jade and jasper. Metals associated with Virgo would be mercury and platinum. Some herbs that are associated with Virgo, not all of them. I had to tone this list down because once you get into the herbs and plants category, things can get a little crazy quickly, especially if you look up associations for Mercury, for example, because Mercury rules Virgo. Mercury has its own herbal and plant repertoire of correspondences and associations. I had to get pretty picky and narrow it down. Herbs would be cornflower, elder, lily, I hate this word, narcissus, I'll put it up here, I'm sorry, as well as rosemary. I really like that rosemary is associated with Virgo, and it's something I think about often because rosemary is so versatile. It is often discussed as the go-to herb that can be used in any magical ritual ceremony as a filler herb, which is the very diplomatic, mutable aspect, just like Virgo, that kind of service. The animal associations with Virgo are a squirrel, magpie, as well as a rooster. I love the rooster representation because obviously a rooster crows with sunrise. Virgo is very much about our work ethic and our habits around work. So getting up at the crack of dawn with the rooster is very apt and is the association I make to its rooster animal representation, as well as the squirrel and the magpie tend to pay attention to fine details and collect things. Magpies love shiny stuff, they collect things, they will gather things and make really nice nests, etc. It's that attention to detail that almost, and I say this with love, like that anal retentive, like perfectionist noticing thing. Like, oh, I see that over there. I could keep that. I'll remember this. That is very squirrel magpie energy for me. Gods and goddesses. So this is a really interesting story because of Virgo's astrological glyph. So Virgo is actually the only sign in the zodiac that is represented by a woman. And this woman is Persephone's daughter, Demeter, I believe. She gets stolen by Hades and brought down to the underworld. Part of her mother's effort to get her back involved striking a deal with Hades so that she could be with her mother in the sky half of the year, and the other half of the year she goes to the underworld to be with Hades. I'm paraphrasing, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this story. However, that's also what instigated like the spring, like the shift of seasons. When she goes down into the underworld with Hades, everything dies and life leaves the earth and is no longer fertile until she comes back up to join her mother in the sky. So this is something that ties into the story of the glyph that represents Virgo, as well as the gods associated with Virgo. Obviously, Demeter is associated with Virgo. There's also Isis is a god associated with Virgo, Minerva, Athing, Andnos, Ceres. So I will write all of those names up here because I probably butchered some of that pronunciation and I am sorry. The tarot card that is associated with Virgo is the Hermit. Virgo has the tendency to be quite reclusive reclusive when it comes to really getting into something. It is usually involved in taking some internal reflection, taking time to be yourself. A hermit is someone who is not in connection to the modern world or society at any given time. So great parallels and visual representation. Using tarot cards on like altar spaces or in rituals for me is super powerful because each individual tarot card is jam-packed with visual symbolism as well as actual interpretations. So the chakras associated with Virgo would be the Manipura chakra or the solar plexus chakra. The body parts associated with Virgo would be your intestine, your spleen, everything in your digestive system that causes the refinement of nutrients and the extraction of goodness for your body. That being said, like I mentioned, the 6th house rules over health and fitness, and subsequently Virgo rules over health and fitness. So often people will use or blur the lines of the specific body parts that Virgo is associated with. This is also in relationship to the chakra that Virgo rules or is associated with, not rules, the solar plexus chakra or your Manipura chakra, because the solar plexus is the area in which all of these body parts are congregated. Those are all the correspondences that I'm sharing today on Virgo. Of course, you can get very specific. Like I said, find your own. It's important to tune in to what matters and to what clicks for you. So if you really don't like one of these, don't use it. Do your own research, figure it out for yourself. But those are the correspondences that I have found on Virgo, and I hope they are useful to you. I do have a few suggestions on how to use this Virgo full moon energy, either in ritual, in altar setups, or in spell work. However you choose, this is how I see these energies being of use. We're going to get kind of the shadowy aspect out of the way first. So I do think that a Virgo full moon would be a great time for spells or rituals or ceremonies that involve taking back your power. Because Virgo very freely and often overextends themselves and doesn't receive all of the appreciation that it maybe deserves. A full moon in Virgo is a great time to see all those patterns in your life where you're giving way too much. Where are you of service and people take it for granted? When was the last time you were recognized? Whether you are a Virgo or not, utilize this energy to really comb through your life and see where you are leaking energy to these people who just freely take from you. And it might not be people, it could be your job, it could be a system, it could be I don't know, your kids, your house, any other house, any other aspect of your life. Where are you losing power? So you can do things like cord cutting if it's appropriate, or if you're someone who wants to spend more time on like healing yourself and doing like the opposite work kind of thing, I would suggest things like self-love rituals, empowerment rituals. Like I mentioned, the full moon energy is really good for release work. It illuminates a lot of things that were previously concealed, and it is also the time of culmination of intentions you have previously set. Remember like 3 months ago when we all sat down and set goals and intentions for the new year to come? Well, Virgo full moon is a great time to reevaluate your New Year resolutions and see if they are or aren't working for you. The Virgo full moon usually falls several months after New Year's, and for me it is like the perfect storm to reevaluate, refine, and then rededicate yourself back to functional, good goals and intentions. Everybody has very lofty dreams when New Year's is going on. We all have like the guilt of eating copious amounts of carbs and alcohol for several months, and then we're like, yeah, we're gonna change. So I think some of us overpromise and underdeliver. So this Virgo full moon is a good time to revisit some of those really big life-shifting, life-changing intentions you might have set and refine them a little bit. We got 2 6-month puppies and they're just right there. So the second thing I'm going to talk about after we talked about kind of working against Virgo's shadow, which would be of serving too much, would be release work. So because the full moon is such powerful release energy, the refinement process of Virgo can come in really handy here. So it is a great time to look back on whether it's your New Year's resolutions and goals and refine those. Did they work for you? Have you completely dropped them? Were they too grandiose? Do you need to make them more bite-sized and to kind of refine them into small, applicable step-by-step things? Or do you want to drop it all together? Have your thoughts and your desires and your wants in life changed and you need to totally release those previous expectations you had on yourself? You'll also see this pattern happen when people are doing magical work, for example, on the new moon. So if you are lining up your rituals or your spell work with the lunar phases, intention setting and goal setting or starting new projects often occurs during the new moon phase. Now, the full moon phase is when the new moon seed has bloomed and blossomed into a flower, so you can take stock of the work that you have done thus far and take a real good look at it with the bright moon, full moon light shining on it and decide if it's what you want. If you planted a fruit tree on the new moon and the fruit that you've got is an orange tree, but you wanted an apple tree, you either need to go back to the new moon again and change the seed you planted, or look at the steps you took while you were watering and nurturing and feeding and loving this tree to figure out why you got a different type of fruit. Those are my garden analogies for you. But it's a great combination of the Virgo's ability to sift through very specific things, very detail-oriented, and it can be a great tool to use when you are doing some kind of release work with the full moon. Proofreading your life with the light of the full moon and the attention to detail of the Virgo archetype. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really enjoy these full moon videos. It is really fun for me to share all of the correspondences and associations that I find on zodiac signs. And I think it's a great way to tie in many different avenues of spiritual practice, different tools, different energetic understandings or language. It's just an awesome way to connect a lot of dots. In the spirit of connecting dots, I would love for you to comment below your associations with Virgo. I think it could be really cool for anyone who watches this video to be able to scroll through the comment section and see if they have any thoughts or feelings or associations with Virgo that someone else also shares. It's a great way to learn and impart some of your wisdom in the community as well. So leave me your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys. As always, I hope you live long and prosper. I will see you very shortly with another video. That is all. Bye-bye.